Swimmers should definitely glide in breaststroke. Of course, unless they shouldn't glide. And that is precisely why breaststroke can be so frustrating for both swimmers and coaches alike. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. Today we're talking breaststroke timing. I was asked whether breaststrokers should glide, and unfortunately, there's not a simple yes or no answer. There's definitely some nuance to this, but fortunately, it's pretty simple to understand the factors that influence whether a breaststroker should glide or they shouldn't glide. Even better, there are some strategies you can use to help swimmers figure out whether they should glide or not. There are four main factors that affect whether swimmers should glide: speed, alignment, kick, and fatigue. Let's take a look at each one. But before we start, I want to mention that breaststrokers should always return to an aligned position in between each stroke cycle. So whether they glide or not, they got to get back into a level position, even if it's only for a split second. What we're talking about here in terms of gliding is whether they should hold that position for any extended period of time. Factor number one is speed. The faster swimmers want to go, and the shorter the distance they're racing over, the less they want to glide. Why? They simply don't have the luxury of waiting for the next stroke cycle. They need to start creating propulsion with the arms right away. While effective gliding can allow swimmers to maintain most of the speed that they create, the faster they want to go, the more that most of their speed isn't sufficient. They need to start creating more speed as soon as possible. That's why you'll see some swimmers really riding out their glide when they're racing over 200, and yet those same swimmers are going to swim with very minimal glide during a 50. Gliding may save energy, but it sacrifices speed. In a 200, that's not much of a problem because efficiency can be more important than speed. If swimmers can go at 95% of the speed with 60% of the effort, just using some arbitrary numbers, that trade-off is definitely worth it, especially over the back half of the race. They're going to be able to finish better at the end. The longer the race, the more gliding can be of potential value, but if swimmers want to go fast, they need to minimize the amount that they glide. Next up is alignment. The better aligned a swimmer is, and the more aligned their body shape in general is, the more that they can glide. Why? These swimmers are going to hold on to a lot more speed because they're creating less resistance. That means they can save energy by not getting into the next stroke without losing much speed. That is always going to be a big win. Swimmers with great alignment not only can glide, they probably should glide, especially in longer races. In contrast, swimmers that struggle with the skill of alignment or simply have the body shape of a barge aren't going to be able to get away with the same gliding behavior. They simply lose too much speed too fast. They need to get into the next stroke quickly and start creating propulsion, or else they're going to significantly compromise their speed. Alignment is a big factor that differentiates effective gliders from ineffective gliders. Next up is kick. The better a kick a swimmer has, the more they can glide. That means they're going to be generating a lot more propulsion, which means a lot more speed heading into the glide. So even if they're not creating propulsion when they're actually gliding, they're still swimming relatively fast because they achieved a pretty high speed after the kick. In contrast, swimmers with a poor kick are not good candidates for gliding, mostly because they're going to go into the glide with a lot less speed. All of their speed comes from the arms, so they don't have the luxury of waiting for the next pull. They need to get into the next stroke right away. And the longer they wait, the slower they swim. Our final factor is fatigue. The more fatigued swimmers are, the less force they can create. That means the powerful kick that's present at the beginning of the race is going to be a lot less powerful during the last quarter of the race. That means less speed. That means less benefit from gliding. Same goes with alignment. As swimmers fatigue, as they start to get out of breath, it becomes a lot more difficult to hold great alignment and stay in line after each kick. Fatigue is the reason you often see swimmers really gliding and riding it out in the front half of a 200 and then really ramping up the tempo and almost eliminating the glide during the last 50 of the 200. Fatigue forces them to pick up the rate because they're not getting as much out of the kick, they're not being as effective with the alignment, and they're really losing speed if they decide to glide. Swimmers have to make the adjustment in order to create as much speed as possible, and that usually means getting into the next stroke faster, especially as they fatigue. While these factors are important in isolation, they also tend to interact, and they can be additive. A fresh breaststroker with a great kick and great alignment should probably glide if they're racing over 200 meters. When swimming the last 25 of a 50, a breaststroker with a terrible kick and really poor alignment probably shouldn't glide at all. Those two situations represent the extremes, and everything else is going to fall somewhere in the middle. Now that we understand the factors that influence whether swimmers should glide or not, what do you do about it? How do you help swimmers figure out whether they should glide? Here are two strategies that can be really effective. have swimmers swim at a range of stroke counts, and have swimmers swim at a range of stroke rates. This will force them to figure out how to create speed with various amounts of gliding. Low counts, low stroke rates are going to force swimmers to glide, whereas high rates and high counts are going to force swimmers to minimize the glide. Then they can see which situations allow them to create a lot of speed. If they swim a lot faster with higher counts and higher rates, that probably means that they don't want to glide much, because when they do, they really lose their speed. In contrast, if there's not much difference between swimming fast at low counts and rates and high counts and rates, those swimmers probably want to glide more because they tend not to lose much speed even when they start to glide. If they can swim the same or similar speeds with a lot less energy, that's the strategy they're going to want to use when in races. When doing this type of work, the patterns are going to emerge over time. You're not necessarily going to do one set and know exactly what to do, but swimmers are going to figure it out with continued exposure. Fortunately, this type of work tends to improve all sorts of skills in breaststroke, so it's well worth doing. And in particular, it can be really useful for helping swimmers figure out their timing. And if you do this work consistently, as their alignment improves, as their kick improves, they can start to adjust how much glide they use and what's going to be the most effective amount for them. So should your swimmers glide? I don't necessarily know, because I don't know what's going to be fastest for them. However, now you should know which factors influence gliding, and you should have some tools to help swimmers figure out how much glide they should be using during different situations. For more on breaststroke timing, be sure to click the video here. I hope that was helpful, and as always, keep it simple.